suppose I have in common with Cinderella? If you guessed that we're both beautiful princesses, you probably need some serious glasses. The real answer is, we both own giant pumpkins. My grandparents, who live across the street from me, allowed me to grow my giant pumpkins on their land. They have been gardening for 50 years, and are now passing on their love and knowledge of gardening down to me. My desire is to pass on my love of gardening to you, in hopes that you too will experience the God-given joys and benefits of gardening. Today, we'll look at gardening in 3 specific ways. First, the perks, then the planning, then the planting of a garden. So let's begin with the perks, the first of them being spiritual. Gardening teaches us about God. You heard me right, gardening teaches us about God. Francis Bacon wrote, quote, "God Almighty first planted a garden, and indeed it is the purest of human pleasures." God himself engaged in this very activity, and that, I think, is why we as humans take so much pleasure in it. And Romans 1:20 tells us that God's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead. We also see his beauty, order, creativity, and glory. Gardening also teaches humility. As my grandma says, quote, "There's a spiritual connection. After all, we have to be on our knees to garden. It makes you humble." Gardening teaches character and trust in God's provision. Horticulturalist Gertrude Jekyll, who herself planted over 400 gardens, noted that, quote, "A garden is a grand teacher. It teaches patience and careful watchfulness. It teaches industry and thrift, and above all, it teaches entire trust." Gardening also teaches us, believe it or not, about spiritual rebirth. We are like a seed, in effect, lifeless. Then the Spirit of God comes and breaks us free from the casing of our old man, as the Bible says. We have been given new life and are a new creation. We can now bear fruit through his care. Gardening also has several physical perks. Exercise. Pulling weeds, reaching for tools, twisting and bending as we plant will work new muscles in our body and help with strength, stamina, and flexibility. Dr. Mercola reported, quote, "Over a 6-month gardening season, that works out at 18,772 calories, the equivalent of running nearly 7 marathons, end quote. Vitamin D. Being outdoors can help us achieve adequate vitamin D levels, boosting calcium levels, which benefits our bones and immune system. Nutrition. Here's an obvious one. Eating fresh, organic, homegrown food is healthy. Need I say more? I don't think so. But there is more. Brain health. In her article, 5 Secret Health Benefits of Gardening, Kim Hayes reported that researchers tracked people over the age of 60 for 16 years. They concluded that, quote, "Physical activity, particularly gardening, could reduce the incidence of dementia by a total of 36%, end quote. Stress relief. The Journal of Health Psychology reported an experiment in which participants performed a stressful task and then were assigned to outdoor gardening or indoor reading. In the gardening group, blood tests showed lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol. Also, positive mood was fully restored, while the reading group's mood continued to worsen. Gardening can relieve acute stress. You say, what could be the reason for all of this? Is gardening really so special? Or is it just physical activity? Do I need to go on my treadmill? Or do I need to get in the dirt? Well, it's getting in the dirt. According to Recall.com, quote, "Researchers have found that digging in the soil may affect your mental health via exposure to beneficial microorganisms in the soil, which increase the release of serotonin in parts of the brain that control cognitive function and mood, acting much like antidepressant drugs do," end quote. Gardening is also a financially sound hobby. Gardening is economical. The National Garden Association estimates that the average family spends $70 a year to plant a vegetable garden and grows about $600 worth of produce. I love growing food for our family, especially if it means saving money. You see so many perks here, but how are we ever going to get started? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's dig into planting our garden. First, select seeds. The season dictates what will grow. Winter vegetables will not grow in summer, and vice versa. As Ecclesiastes 1-2 clearly states, to everything there is a season. Time to plant, and time to pluck what is planted. It's Christmas time. You know what? It's beginning of spring. So if you live in sunny Southern California like I do, then some good options would be carrots, lettuce, radishes, and donuts. I wish. Buy seed. I strongly suggest buying seed from a company named Botanical Interests, the lower cost, higher quality seed. Order now and they'll throw in a free seed packet on your first order. Now it's time to sketch out your garden plan, including mounds, beds, rows, or pots for the various types of plants you'd like to choose. For techie people or tired people, there is an online kitchen garden planner. This tool simplifies the trouble of sketching and gives you a better idea of how to work with the space you have. Whichever method you choose, be sure you have adequate sun exposure, tending paths, and convenient access to water. Also, consider leaving space for insectary plants that aid in biological pest control. Examples are the California poppy and cilantro, whose lacy foliage attract a wide number of beneficial insects. Now for planting. My favorite part. It's as easy as PLANT. Literally. First is to prepare soil. Till through the soil so your plants won't have any trouble rooting. Remove rocks and other obstacles that could hinder water from reaching the roots. Then lay in the seeds. For Big Macs here, a pumpkin plant, directions on the seed packet say 1 inch depth and amount. Now you're wondering, what other information does the seed packet include? Well, the front indicates the sowing season. The back contains a picture of the seedling, characteristics of the pumpkin, planting depth, and spacing. For Big Macs, is 2 to 3 seeds per mat, to allow for thinning out the weaker sprouts and leaving just the strongest one. The maturity is 120 days, signifying about when the pumpkin should be ripe. Notice, I say about. Well, as my grandpa said, nobody told the pumpkin when it's supposed to be ripe. Now, add soil on top. Add 1 inch of soil on top, like this. Then, neatly pat down. This step is sometimes forgotten, but it is important for strong roots. Now, take your time watering. As my grandpa says to emphasize this point, water until you're bored. I'm bored. Then, water some more. After planting, protect your seeds from drying out. Keep seeds moist until they sprout. Then water less frequently, but for longer when you do. Wilting. Shade cloth comes in degrees of sun protection for allowing just enough sun. Perfect. Birds are afraid of shiny things, like CDs. But I suppose if you have raccoons nearby, you'll just end up attracting them instead. Thumper and his buddy pals would love to have some of your delicious veggies. But don't let them. Barricade these cute monsters from snacking on your greens by fetching. Fungus and mildew. Neem oil serves a dual purpose as both a pesticide and a fungicide. It works on pests, including tomato hornworms, aphids, and whiteflies. However, plant immunity is the best prevention. Healthier plants are simply less susceptible to attack. Aphids. I had aphids covering the underside of my pumpkin plant. Then, a group of ladybugs arrived, and bingo, no more aphids. We've looked at the perks, the planning, and the planting of the garden. I find so much joy in being able to see a small seed grow into something as big as a pumpkin. I also think it is incredible because I am reminded daily of the new life God has given me. Just like my grandparents have been passing on their love of gardening to me, I've been able to encourage, inspire, or even help you to give that push to start gardening because of me. As Gertrude Jekyll stated, quote, "The lesson I have thoroughly learned and wish to pass on to others is to know the enduring happiness that the love of a garden gives." Thank you.